Alycat's indie viewers. So today is part 1 of my September 2016 favorites. If you don't know what favorites are, that's where I list pretty much everything in the entertainment industry I loved for the past few weeks. And I split these into 2 parts because I have way too many favorites and I can't narrow them down, so you get 2 parts. I have links for everything I mentioned in the description box down below, so let's just get started. First up, for the book segment, I really enjoyed My Heart and Other Black Holes by Jasmine Warga? Don't know how you say her last name. But this story follows a young woman named Azelle. Azelle is 16 and she wants to commit suicide, so she joins this website and finds a suicide partner, and it turns out to be a really handsome 17-year-old boy named Roman, and you know where this is heading, but it's so sweet and touching, and yes, it does deal with the very dark topic of suicide, and it can be triggering. I would say if that's a trigger point for you, don't read this book. But I really enjoyed it. It did feel a little rushed at the end, but I guess that's like life, you know, life's not perfect, it's kind of rushed. It goes by in the blink of an eye, you know. I really enjoyed it though, and I highly recommend it if you're into YA and if you like to read about darker topics. Definitely check this out. It's not your typical romance book or anything. It's actually really heartfelt. Next up, for my favorite segment and the most jam-packed segment, the movies segment. Because I'm taking part in the 100-day film challenge, which if you'd like to read my written reviews for all the movies I've covered, my website will be linked down below. The 100-day film challenge is where I watch a film every day for 100 days that I've never seen before. I have tons of films to list, so let's get started. First up is Beautiful Prison. My friend Joel from Media Glitch actually directed this film and wrote it, and I think that's incredible. I'm not going to say what it's about because I went into this completely blind, and it was so much better because of it. He told me to go into it blind, and it's just so well done, especially because he's a first-time filmmaker. This is his first ever film, like full feature-length film. Like, this is incredible. The effects are amazing. The acting's good. I was really thoroughly surprised, and I highly recommend it. Please support Joel and buy this on Amazon because he totally deserves it, and it's really good. If you're into horror, definitely check it out. If you're into psychological thrillers, definitely check it out. That's all I'm gonna say. The next film I really loved was Me Before You. Now, Me Before You is one of my favorite books of all time, so I was super excited for the film adaptation. Of course, I knew what would happen. But this is not your typical love story. It follows Lou, a woman who just recently lost her job at a pastry shop. So she accepts a job as a caretaker for a very handsome young man named Will Traynor, who is a quadriplegic. And it follows how she is trying to help to convince him that life is worth living. I won't say what happens, but it's not your usual romance, okay? And I did cry. Like, I cried reading the book. I cried watching this. Emilia Clarke and Sam Claflin are fantastic. Plus, I really got a kick out of seeing Charles dance in this because, you know, Charles Dance and Emilia Clarke are both in Game of Thrones, so seeing Tywin Lannister and Daenerys Targaryen on screen together was kind of cool. And it's got really great supporting roles from Jenna Coleman, Matthew Lewis, and Janet McTeer. I highly recommend this film if you're into romantic films, but even if you're not, this is not your usual romantic film. So I do recommend it. It's really good. The next film is Starship Troopers. This is actually my personal favorite Verhoeven film up to date. And of course, pretty much everyone knows what Starship Troopers is about. This is totally different from the source material. It's about a group of young people who enroll to be in an army to fight against these, like, alien insects. And it's just so good. It was like a career start for, like, Casper Van Dien, Denise Richards, Neil Patrick Harris, Jake Busey, so many people. I loved how unique it was. Paul Verhoeven uses a lot of unique filmmaking styles and tricks when he makes his films, and this is my personal favorite. It's just so good. If you haven't seen it, watch it. The effects especially are really good considering this was made in the 90s. It still holds up pretty well today. Another film I have to mention, which, sorry for this case, is Lost in Translation. This is a double pack, so I'm covering up the other film. Lost in Translation surprised me thoroughly. It is a film by Sofia Coppola and stars Bill Murray and Scarlett Johansson. It's about 2 people, Bill Murray, who is playing an aging actor, and Scarlett Johansson, who is the wife of a young famous photographer. They're both in Tokyo, staying at the same hotel, and they're lost in translation. They don't know the language, they don't know the landscape, but they become friends with each other, and you see how they develop feelings for each other and how friendship and love and all these other different emotions form. If you're not into films that have tons of dialogue and exposition, you're gonna hate Lost in Translation, because this is basically 2 hours of people just talking to each other. But I loved it, and I loved its message. I thought Bill Murray and Scarlett Johansson were the perfect choices, because Bill Murray, you know, was perfect as the aging actor. He's wise, he's intelligent, he's been through the ringer with films, he knows what he's doing. Scarlett Johansson was very young at the time, and she had this innocence and naivete, and I just thought they were great. I thought Giovanni Ribisi and Anna Faris were really good in their supporting roles, and I just really enjoyed it. So if that sounds good to you, definitely check out Lost in Translation. The next film up is A Single Man. A Single Man was the directorial debut of Tom Ford, who is a very iconic fashion designer. A Single Man stars Colin Firth as an English professor who has just lost the love of his life, a young man. He died in a car accident, so he's trying to get through the grief and the loss of the love of his life. And it shows how it impacts his life, his friendships with people, how it impacts his job. And it's a very stream of consciousness type of film. If you're not into that, you won't like this, but I thought it was very well done, very stylish, of course. And Colin Firth was fantastic, and Julianne Moore was great as his best friend, and Matthew Goode was great as his dead lover. And there are tons of famous people that made cameos in this film. It's so well done, and I'm super psyched for Nocturnal Animals now that I've seen A Single Man and saw how good it was. The next film I want to give a shout out to is The Lobster. The Lobster was directed by Yorgos Lanthimos, I think that's how you say his name. And it stars Colin Farrell, and the story is about a society where if you're single, you get arrested and checked into a hotel for 45 days, and during your stay at the hotel, you have to find a mate. If you don't find a mate, you're turned into the animal of your choice and released into the wilderness. And it's called The Lobster because Colin Farrell's character decides to become a lobster if he doesn't find his mate. And it's just a really, really good look at how we view romance in society today. And I thought it was very well done. The acting was really good. It also stars Olivia Colman. She was fantastic. Rachel Weisz, Ben Whishaw, and John C. Reilly, and Leah Seydoux. I highly recommend this film. It is really, really weird, but it's really good, and I was very pleasantly surprised by it. It's definitely a very strong film with a very powerful message, and it enthralled me throughout the whole running time. The next film up is a cinematic masterpiece in my opinion, and that is Cinema Paradiso. Cinema Paradiso is a classic Italian film. It's about the story of a man named Toto who receives a call from his mother when he's about in his 50s, I would say, and this call tells him that a man named Alfredo died. So that sends him back into flashbacks, and it tells the story of how Toto and Alfredo met and how Alfredo changed Toto's life for the better and how he kind of led Toto onto his career path. And it's just so beautiful. If you're a film lover, you have got to watch Cinema Paradiso. The whole film is a loving homage to cinema. It's fantastic, beautiful, very well done, very beautifully shot. It's just great. The next film up is Children of Men. This is a film by Alfonso Cuarón. And Children of Men is set in a futuristic London where women are infertile and the youngest person ever has died, has been murdered. He was 18 years old. And it stars Clive Owen, and there's wars breaking out in the streets of London. Basically, all hell is breaking loose, and Clive Owen and his group of survivors discover that there is a young woman who is actually pregnant, and they have to escort her to safety. And the film follows them as they try to get her to safety through all these wars breaking out, through all the violence that is happening in London. It's a very affecting film. There are some parts that are boring, but for the most part, this is a very well done film. It's a very unique concept, beautifully shot, beautifully acted. I was actually quite surprised at how brutal this film was at points. The next film is Sweeney Todd, the Demon Barber of Fleet Street. That's not how it goes, but Sweeney Todd. Let me just say that my first experience with the tale of the Demon Barber of Fleet Street was in freshman year of high school when my theater production teacher decided to show us the 1982 Angela Lansbury starring a version, and It kind of scarred me for life because at that time I couldn't stand gore. I was like, why the hell are you showing this to high school students? But I just recently watched the Tim Burton version and oh my gosh, it's beautiful. Okay, this is a beautiful film. It's dark, it's gothic, it's very violent and gory, but it's fantastic. Johnny Depp as Sweeney Todd is phenomenal. Plus Helena Bonham Carter knocks it out of the park as Mrs. Lovett. There's Alan Rickman. He's great. It also stars Timothy Spall, Sacha Baron Cohen, and Jamie Campbell Bower. Everyone does amazingly well in their musical performances. I thought the songs were very catchy, and I thought it was very well done. It's a very dark film, like I said, but it's just so good. Pirelli's Miracle Elixir really does the trick, sir. Continuing on with Tim Burton films, I have to give a shout out to Sleepy Hollow. Yes, I just now saw this, but is it my favorite Tim Burton film ever? No, but I thought it was very well done. I thought it was a unique take on the tale of Ichabod Crane and the Headless Horseman, and I love Johnny Depp as Ichabod, and I thought this was a very beautiful film. Of course, dark and gothic like most of Tim Burton's films are. I love the imagery, like especially during one scene when Ichabod is hacking away at a tree, and every time his axe hits the tree, blood pours out of the tree's branches. I thought that was great. It's just a very visually stunning film. It was boring at points, I will say, but for the most part, I really enjoyed Sleepy Hollow. The next one up, people are gonna murder me for not having seen this sooner, but that is John Carpenter's The Thing. For the most part, I love this film. It was glacially slow at the beginning, and I was kind of bored, but once the aliens started infecting people, I really got hooked. For the time being that this film was made, the practical effects are astonishing. It's fantastic. And I just love the sense of paranoia and the sense of claustrophobia you get when you're watching this film. You don't know who's infected by the alien. You don't know who's going to randomly combust at any random point in time. It's just so good, and I felt like I was trapped in that bunker with those men. I seriously felt like the temperature was dropping at points, like when I was watching the film, like as the film went on, as the cold started to settle in, I started to feel cold as well. And it's a very, very good science fiction / horror film. If you haven't seen it like me, I say watch it. Unless you're squeamish, don't watch it because it's very gory. The last film I want to mention is actually a very surprising choice. I just watched it last night, and it's Girl in the Box, and this is a Lifetime movie, but it was so good. It stars Zane Holtz, who you know I've mentioned before because he's Richie Gecko and From Dusk Till Dawn the series. It stars Zane Holtz and Zelda Williams as a couple who kidnap a teenage girl who is hitchhiking, and they keep her in a box for about 8 years in their house, and the box is like built into their bed. So like she is living underneath their bed for 8 years. They only let her out for 1 hour a day, and she is being raped. It's such a messed up story, and it's actually true. This actually happened, people, okay? Real story. Zane Holtz was so good in the role of Cameron, okay? He was so creepy, so just disgustingly compelling. I loved him in this film, and this was not your typical Lifetime movie. It wasn't cheesy. It was very well done. Like, I was surprised this was a Lifetime production, to be honest. It was very good. Very messed up. Like, it doesn't show, like, everything happening, but you can sense when she's being beaten, when she's being raped. And it's very dark, and I actually really loved it. So if you can find it like airing sometime, or like if it comes on DVD or something, or on Netflix, check it out because it's very well done. And that concludes my movie segment. Now moving on to the TV segment. First up, I want to mention Bloodline. Bloodline is a Netflix original, and it's the story of the Rayburn family, which the whole thing kicks off because Danny Rayburn, played by Ben Mendelsohn, is murdered by his family. That's not a spoiler because it happens at the very beginning of the first episode. And it kind of explores why they murdered him and what their family is up to. And everyone in this family is fucked up, I swear. There are so many amazing actors in this series. Like I said, Ben Mendelsohn, Kyle Chandler, Sissy Spacek, Linda Cardellini. It's such a good mystery thriller show, and I highly recommend it. Next up is Harley and the Davidsons. This was a Discovery Channel mini-series about the start of Harley Davidson, how they created their first bike, their first chopper, and I really enjoyed it. If you haven't watched my review for it, link is in the description box down below. And lastly, I really loved the premiere episodes of From Dusk Till Dawn Season 3. They showed 2 episodes for the premiere. It was fantastic. I just love seeing the Gecko Brothers because I have a huge thing for the Gecko Brothers. And I just love seeing the continuing journey and what's been happening since the 2nd season ended, and it was great. I can't wait to watch the rest of the season. The only game I really got to play this month was Mr. Robot 1.51 Exfiltration, which is an iOS/Android game, which is not really even a game. It was created by Telltale Games and Night School Studio. It's basically disguised as like a text messaging app, and it basically says that your phone is like a burner phone that you just randomly found, and you start receiving messages from Darlene, a character from the show, which it does help if you have seen Mr. Robot, because if you haven't, you'll be like, who are these people? But you basically help Darlene and Elliot hack into other people's personal info and gain access to their credentials and stuff. You can screw up, because I did screw up. There's dialogue choices like most Telltale games, but it's fantastic. It doesn't last very long, and it is $3, but I think it's very worth it, because even though I only got like maybe 2 hours out of it before it ended, I could definitely see it playing out in different ways if I had chosen different dialogue options. So if you're into Mr. Robot, definitely play this game, because you'll love it. If you're not into Mr. Robot, I don't know how much you'll enjoy this game, but I really liked it. All the music I loved is in the description box down below, so give it a listen and let me know what you think. And lastly, for YouTube channels I've really enjoyed, I really love Alana Pierce's channel. She works for IGN, but she also has her own YouTube channel, and she talks about what she's loving in games and all that other stuff. Like, she takes you into her life sometimes. She has an Ask Alana series where she answers questions that people send her. She does vlogs. She does so many different videos, and she's just so gorgeous and very interesting, and I really love her channel, so definitely check her out if you're into gaming. And lastly, I really love Melanie Murphy's channel. Melanie Murphy is so inspirational because she's very open about her sexuality. She's very open about her past with eating disorders and stuff like that, and I just love to watch her favorites videos. I love to watch her videos about sexuality. I just think she's very inspirational, plus she's drop dead gorgeous. So those are all my favorites for September. I know there was a ton. If you liked this video, please leave a like. Let me know down below what you've loved so far this month. Share the video if you'd like to, because that'd be super duper helpful. And don't forget to subscribe, because you get to see more of this face if you do. If you'd like to follow me on any social media sites, they're listed down below in the description box. I love you all so much. Thank you so much for watching. Peace and kisses.